welcome back to the CoinDrop podcast, episode 92, hot off the heels of our 1.5 community event. I think that one went a little bit better last night. My internet didn't go out. Mike was there. I was a slithery snake. You were a floating torso.
Other than the game's glitches, it was just fun. We had a good time.
Yeah.
Mike was the douchebag that made sure we all died as often as possible.
Yes.
But,
I ran around with a hatchet and chopped things up and died in the process. And
yes,
it was fun. It was great. I had the most melee kills.
He said, Leroy Jenkins, I got all dead.
Yep. Hey, I'd get a couple kills in there. But yeah, no, that was fun. Helldivers 2 was great. Next month, we'll be doing another one, but that is going to be slightly different. At the end of next month, when we do our community event, we're actually going to be teaming up with Iron Taxi. Those of you who follow us will remember him as the lead dev on Exfil. We're going to be doing a community event where we play with him and play Exfil. So if you want to tune in for that, it'll be live at all the same places that we were last time. So Facebook and Twitch, hopefully.
I don't know how much he follows us and listens to us or knows my personal opinions on Battle Royales.
It's not a Battle Royale.
Oh,
yeah.
Am I okay? What kind of game is this?
It's technically an extraction shooter, but it is a team-based. Yeah,
that's what I meant. Extraction. I'm sorry, I said the wrong genre. That's my bad. That's my bad. And I'm not a big fan of extraction shooters. And I'm actually excited for this, and probably because two people at school they play Tarkov all the time, and because you guys got a chance to speak with Iron Taxi about this game, I've actually been championing this with them. I'm just like, bro, you guys got to play this game. We've been talking to the dev. There's a 4-hour demo currently available. At least give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I finally got one of them to watch a video, and he's like, oh, that actually looks pretty damn good.
Yeah. So good. No, I didn't mean to finish up. Good.
I was basically just saying I finally at least got one of them to look at it, nice. Rather than just be like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to playing this.
It's a little bit more unique than like just an extraction shooter because it is team based. So it's not like you're not managing food and water and stuff like that. It's a team based. You're going in for intel and you're getting out, right? That's why it's exfil, right? But it's very fun. There's no real HUD to tell you who's on your team and who's not. You've got patches that are colored. So you've got to pay attention to where you last saw your teammates and where you're engaging with your enemies, because it's very easy to end up killing one of your guys. So, yep. Yeah, it's cool. I'm looking forward to it. But that will be next month's community event. But in addition to that, obviously next episode, the episode that will come out on the 2nd for our public listeners and on the 1st for our patrons. I promise these are not April Fool's jokes. We don't do that at CoinDrop. And if we do, they will be very clear and very clear. We have some big announcements. They will be announced on that episode. Don't miss that episode. Listen to it early. That's really all I got. Listen to it early. Listen to it when it comes out. As soon as that episode comes out, we post it on public, comes out Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Listen to it when it drops.
And along with those lines, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us more than you might imagine. We appreciate all of the help that you guys give us, just listening to us.
Yeah.
One thing that would help us even more so would be to give us some sort of review. Wherever you listen to the podcast, write something. Just tell us why you like it. Tell us why you hate it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anything is helpful. And we appreciate you guys regardless.
Absolutely. And speaking on that, we appreciate our patient. I'm going to take that again. We appreciate our Patreon subscribers even more because, they help pay to fund this show. So we want to give back to them. So we do have a Patreon side for those of you listening to us for the first time. CoinDrop Pod, patreon.com/CoinDrop Pod. You'll find us there. And it's $3 a month. You get extra content. You get, we do an exclusive kind of upcoming games for the week where we post links via Steam store or whatever store the game is on that you can purchase it through. We give kind of our curated, like this is what's coming within the next week. You get the episode early, and our monthly art is being worked on for our patrons. This month's art, which will technically come out in April for March, is going to be some art done of the characters of Split Fiction. So we're going to have that for our patrons exclusive over there as well. So with that, Tim, how's your week been, man?
Man, that was a very busy week, driving back and forth about an hour and a half for the most part. I was at a sawmill shutdown. Basically, I found out that this sawmill, which makes plywood veneer. They cut the super thin wood. That way it can be turned into plywood. I found out just how, I don't want to say dirty, but I want to say like, they debark the wood and they cut it and they make the plywood veneer. But the process that they have for all of the sawdust as well as the bark and all the other things, they've got all these conveyor belts and stuff everywhere, and they're meant to capture everything. It's you can see all the vats and everything all over the place, and there's just pounds of it falling everywhere.
Jesus.
The whole week the plant was shut down, and there was all sorts of people there, multiple different electrical companies out there, as well as sheet metal and welders and everyone else there. The whole week it was down, which actually I think it was down for a week and a half. They were just cleaning all of that shit up.
Wow.
And I don't know if this is like a week's worth of shit gathered, or if this was a whole month's worth of shit gathered, because I think they shut down pretty regularly, because big plants always do that. They got to make sure they maintain things,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
And and so we had our work cut out for us, working around all that, and the welders, doing what they were doing and trying to start fires and stuff. I actually prevented a major fire last week. The fire watch was paying attention to the welders, and I guess one of the welders, like behind them, cut something where he wasn't supposed to, and so a fire started underneath a whole bunch of logs, and I saw the fire, and I'm just like, "Hey, you're a fire watch, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "There's a fire over there. You might want to go blow that shit out." And he was like, "They're not supposed to be cutting back there." I'm like, "There's no fire over there. You might want to take care of it."
I think right now that might be irrelevant. The fact is, there's a fire, and you should put it out.
Yeah. It was a good time though. We got to do some work, and I got plenty of hours in, and it was exhausting driving back and forth most every day. There's one night I stayed overnight, and anyways, that was my week. I didn't play shit other than Assassin's Creed.
Gotcha.
On Thursday, and yesterday I didn't get a chance to play today. I was super busy, but we'll get into that later.
We sure will. My week's been okay. I finished up Final Fantasy 16, and not a fan in the end. In fact, it wasn't great. I know you haven't beaten it yet, but you said, have you done the DLC or?
So I know more than I should because of the internet, and it's been more than a year. Yeah. And my understanding is the ending is kind of polarized. There's actually a lot of people that really liked it.
That doesn't.
And there's a lot of people that didn't like it.
Yeah.
And obviously you fit that camp. And I suspect that I'm going to be in the like camp, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm so close to the end of Stellar Blade, and I've picked up Dragon Age, and I've picked up Assassin's Creed. Too many, but I'm trying to stick at least a couple of games.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to Stellar Blade probably pretty hard, so I can get it out of the way, and then replace it with Final Fantasy. That game, I don't know if I care to platinum it. I typically don't these days. Yeah. But that will be the game I replace it with, so I can then work on.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it once you actually finish it then, because I've got some thoughts, but I've been, since finishing that and then starting Assassin's Creed, I'm kind of over open world games. And we'll kind of talk about that when we get to Assassin's Creed in a bit here. But like, I really appreciated the linear nature of Final Fantasy 16 in a sense that I was able to just put the game down for 3 weeks, walk away, do, projects around the house, take care of things I have to take care of as, with father, a husband, home, like all the shit that you have to do outside of just playing a video game, and being able to come back to it and just know exactly where I'm at, what I'm doing, where I'm going. I recently went to try and play Stalker 2 again, and I booted it up and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Where am I going? It's that, like it's been 2 months since I played Stalker 2. So I'm like, I got to relearn the controls and learn what, because it's.
Bro.
Yeah.
When I turned Assassin's Creed on today, I got like 10 minutes to play because I was playing on my portal and I was trying to use my cell phone internet, so I didn't get a chance to play it basically. But when I turned it on, I was like, "Fuck, where am I?"
Yeah.
So I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Entirely.
So it makes it hard for those open world games. And I was looking through my Steam library yesterday trying to find, what I wanted to play. And I was like 90% of these are open world games and they really don't need to be. So I don't know. I'm in kind of a weird place in the headspace when it comes to games. But speaking of open world games, Forest Reigns, VG Entertainment has given us an update on their project. And
they've given us an update.
Yes. I think they've sent this information to a lot of outlets. This video was posted to their YouTube page. So I imagine we've got it was definitely drafted for us. And the reply that I got was definitely drafted for us. So thank you, for reaching out and sharing this news with us. This game is another open world game, another open world FPS, although it has in its initial release video been criticized as looking like a hallway shooter. It is very clearly not that based on the footage here, as well as what the team has said, their goals, their ambitions. So we're going to talk about it a little bit because there's some new information that actually has me really excited for this. And I'm hoping their narrative will be linear enough, similar to a game I'll mention here in a bit, that it'll be easy to jump in and jump out of. So
before you continue, it makes me wonder, are we just old and do we like the games of the past when open world didn't exist? Technically speaking,
sure.
Because there kind of was always open world, especially when you can look back at Zelda,
or GTA.
Way back. I mean, all
PS1,
the way back to OG.
Yeah, but like PS1.
OG Nintendo.
Sure.
Like even OG Nintendo Zelda, that was open world, right? But my point is are we just old? Or is there open world fatigue starting to set in with people? I mean, like you said, people they criticized this game as a hallway shooter. Hallway shooter?
Yeah.
Hallway shooter because it's not open world, even though it is.
Yeah, it didn't appear that way from the initial trailer.
Yeah. So my point is are we old?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, but
technically no. I mean,
in terms of like the gaming world
preferences and stuff. Yeah. But or is it like is there some sort of fatigue because there's a lot of other people that are saying similar things to us that I'm talking to that do enjoy that pointed story.
Yeah.
Open world is fine, but when every single one of them is that, there's a problem.
Yeah, I'm just going through, like, I wanted to do this before the podcast. I didn't get a chance, but just kind of briefly looking through my Steam library of what I have installed. I have 200 and something odd games. I think 291 games, just shy of 300 games. And I would say, just kind of briefly scrolling through everything, a good like 80% at least of these games are open world. 80% at least.
MMO or open world.
Yeah. In some form or another. Like in that open world, I'm not just counting it like, it has to have one giant open world. Like Monster Hunter to me is open world. Monster Hunter World is open world because it's massive open zones, right?
Yeah.
So like,
or at least open world enough.
Yeah. Enough that there's mass to it. It's not level progression like Castlevania Lords of Shadow. That's not an open world game. That's a linear level based game. So I think it's a bit of both, honestly. Like I think we'll get into this a little bit more with Assassin's Creed. But I do feel like we have a lot of responsibilities outside of our passion now, and it makes dedicating the hundreds of hours it takes to get through most games almost impossible. Almost impossible. So, I'm hoping this game isn't that, but from what it shows, I'm actually really excited for this because from what they showed in this trailer, how they're talking about your movement and your ability to navigate the world, it feels a lot like an open world Dishonored. I never played Dishonored 2, but this feels like Dishonored had multiple paths for you to achieve what you wanted to do. And then, I mean like physical paths, right? Like you had multiple ways of traversing that section of the map or whatever. And then you ultimately had the choice of whether you kill your target or not, right? Which affected the world around you. this game kind of has that as well. You have multiple avenues, multiple ways to approach each mission. And they go through 3 of them in this footage that they showed off, which is,
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
So the reason I'm stopping you here is because you mentioned Dishonored.
Mm-hmm.
Dishonored is an extremely linear
Yes.
game, but it does give you enough freedom to feel opened to allowing you to play how you want. Is this game like that, or is an open world game more akin to, say, Far Cry that says play how you want and tackle each objective in your way?
So
I guess.
Yeah. So I think the best one-to-one comparison for this game, mainly because it takes place in the same place, is comparing it to Assassin's Creed Unity. It's not open world in a sense that there's a bunch of empty space, right? You are solely in the city of Paris in this game. So it's open world, but it plays like it, from what I see.
Maybe Stalker 2 or 3?
No, because
not Stalker. I'm sorry, Crisis.
I never played 2 or 3. I only played the first one. But probably if it was city based, like it's urban, right? So it's urban based. You don't have massive open empty areas. It's not traversing through the countryside. It's from what they show, what I see, my impression is it's elevation, right? You can go into the sewers, you can go into buildings and go up high, not necessarily onto the rooftops, but like there seems to be, it's a city, right? So you've got levels to things, not progressive levels, but altitude levels, elevation. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, Crisis became increasingly more linear, which is kind of interesting because Crisis 1 was giant and open world, but Crisis 3 was basically a straight line corridor shooter.
Gotcha.
More or less. It was more open than that, kind of allowing you to tackle it in various ways, but it was old enough to be tackle it in these 8 ways or, whatever, kind of thing.
So I think a good comparison here would be Dying Light would be another good one here. It's one big open world. Well, technically 2 in Dying Light, but you've got multiple ways to reach where you're trying to go, right?
Okay. So open world, but like not GTA levels of open world.
No, it's confined.
Or like Horizon.
Yeah, but it's the city is your world. There's no going outside the city, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like cities are still open world, right, but they're concrete jungles, right? Mm-hmm. Therefore, they're very pointed, but you can still like supposing the developers give you enough to say like verticality or climbing points or whatever. They give you that freedom, but it is still semi-linear, like a little bit.
I don't know. I'm going off of what they've shown and what they've said so far. I don't think there's any linear nature to this at all, other than that, like, well, to get to the end of this street, you have to go down this street, or you can take that street, or you can take that street, right? Like, if you're going to go to work, you probably have multiple ways to go to work. You're going to choose the fastest route. So in that sense,
maybe like Division, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I could see some like comparison to how Division is open world. You're going to a point. Let me just get back to what we've got here, and maybe that'll clear it up. So the mission they present is a rescue mission. A member of one of the 2 factions that we learn about in this footage is a scout for the Citizens faction, which is basically a group of people that are cooperative, trying to help each other. You can align with these guys. The other faction, which are infiltrating or attacking, is the NQA, which are a bandit-like faction. And your mission given to you by the Citizens faction is to get in there, get their guy out. However you do that, it's up to you, but you can go in and get him out. One option is literally using some of the Citizen faction as NPCs, as a squad, to go in, guns blazing, and fight your way through the gates to get the guy out. It's a good option if you like a full frontal assault. There is a downside to it, though. You will actually lose standing with the faction that you're working with if you take squad members with you and they die. So that's actually kind of cool, because that means you're not just responsible for getting the guy out, but you're also responsible for keeping your squad alive, which is something personally I think is really cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the real world, if you took somebody with you and that person died, then no one's going to be happy with you. It doesn't matter if it's your fault or not.
Right.
They're still not going to be happy.
Right.
Because someone they care about and love is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, no, that's really cool.
I think it's cool. The biggest concern I have there is the AI going to be competent enough to take care of itself, right? Because like that's a big concern. If he's just going to stand out in the freaking open and be a complete liability, there's no chance I'm taking any AI with me. So it requires the AI to be somewhat more robust than most shooter AIs.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely requires them to be more robust. So my understanding of AI is a lot of times games have absolutely retarded AI.
Yes.
And it's not because AI is incapable, it's because they choose that.
Right.
Which is kind of weird, especially when you look at games like, say, Army of Two, throwback there, is their AI was fucking retarded.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can think of is the reason they chose that for that game is because they wanted you to find another human player to play with, because that's kind of how the game was designed.
Yeah.
They wanted to make it available to play by yourself. But anyways, AI being dumb is literally a design choice. And so they could make the AI, especially these days, they could make the AI absolutely insanely intelligent. They can consider so many different aspects that they would be better than you as a player. And you could just follow them. They would do everything for you.
I mean, we've seen kind of NVIDIA show that off with their battle buddy thing for PUBG, right? Where you get your AI.
Recently, yeah.
So like we know that tech is there and it's definitely usable. But I don't know if that's what they've implemented here, if they've built their own system.
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of UE5 tech demos where people are building complex AI that actually like uses cover and thinks about sight lines and things like that. So even before that battle buddy thing that they showed off, the tech is there, the knowledge is there. It's a matter of implementation. So that's one option you have, right? Is use this squad, go in guns blazing, take out the enemies, use the force to your advantage. He in the footage, or she, whoever's actually playing, it's a female narrator, who knows? They shoot this route and it comes up and acts as cover that has like little pustules on it that you can shoot, or that can get shot and blow up and hurt you, or you can shoot them on the enemy cover and hurt them. When you start to antagonize the forest in this way, the grass actually like sinks down to the ground and turns red. And if you step on it, it cuts you, which is interesting because it looks like there's a bleed mechanic, because as soon as that happens to the player on screen, they put on a tourniquet, which I got to say right away, not the best choice. As somebody prior military like us both, we both know tourniquet for a cut, it's a little extreme. Personally, if you guys are listening, maybe do a bandage. I don't know if it's too late to change that, but a bandage makes a lot more sense. Yeah, a bandage makes bandage makes a lot more sense. That's just my 2 cents. If it's not too late to change that, that would be my recommendation. Just as somebody who learned self-aid buddy care in the military.
I'm going to go back to Army of Two here. I want to shove fucking tampons in my bullet wounds.
I mean, that's what they were originally created for, right? So,
exactly.
So anyways, they throw a tourniquet on, which seems to imply some sort of status effects, which is kind of cool. And then proceed to kill everybody and work through and that kind of stuff. They also confirm weapon mods because they did talk about them, but they tell us a little bit more. We know we're going to be able to change out barrels, scopes, magazines, suppressors, and reduce recoil, whether that's butt stock or foregrip or something like that. But those are the things that they were specifically called out here that we're going to be able to attach to our weapons, which is really cool. The second avenue to go about this particular mission, and in fact the entire game, because I confirmed this with our PR contact, you can do stealth for every portion of this game. And as a person who loves stealth shooters, hell yes, that is the only way I'll play this game. There are stealth takedowns. You can put a suppressor on your weapon. There's all kinds of great stuff for that. And it also like, it's a risk reward on that because there's a day-night cycle. You're similar to Dying Light, kind of. The forest is more deadly at night. There's more like hostile creatures out, right? So you balance like, okay, I can surprise the human enemies, but the forest is going to be slightly more deadly. So it's this kind of risk reward balance, which is really cool. There's also rewarding exploration of just like finding new ways to get places. You have a chance of finding other gear and equipment that's just left out throughout the world. Their third approach, as they call it, is the exploration approach, which leads to like, okay, this is where I need to go. I'm going to go kind of scout around over here. Oh, look, I found a gas mask, which is going to let me get into the subway and the sewer system where there's this toxic pollen that you can't breathe. Otherwise, it makes you hallucinate and go kind of crazy or whatever. So you get this gas mask. You can go down there now, and you can go under the building that the NQA are occupying. The problem with this pollen, which is really interesting, is if you fire your gun in the presence of this pollen, it starts to lock up your gun. Like your gun actually physically gets this on it, and it like glows this purpley kind of color like we saw in the first trailer, and it jams your gun up. And it says in the video, I don't remember exactly.
That's an insane amount of pollen, but obviously but still the idea is cool. It basically gets dirty. It gets jammed up with all of this pollen.
I think it's also sentient pollen too, right? So like it's attracting, because that's the whole thing is the forest is alive. Yeah. So I'm assuming it's like stop doing violence kind of shit.
It's working its best to stop you.
Yes. But that also means either one of two things. Either that weapon is now garbage and you can't use it anymore, or there's a durability repair system to weapons like in Stalker 2 and other games like that. Right. So that's kind of cool. That gives a little bit more depth to the gun mechanics and things of that nature. Also, the grenades we saw in the first trailer that like were basically an in-game delete button for enemies. Those are really fucking cool. They're called, I think it was Rattlethorn grenades. The narrator had kind of a thick accent, so I'm not 100% sure that's what she said. But they're like an in-game delete button. You just chuck that at an enemy. It makes no noise and they just disappear out of reality. It's so fun to watch. I love that. It's a great stealth weapon to give a player a grenade for stealth combat without for just having a grenade for stealth, right? Because that's not something you usually get as part of your kit if you're doing stealth. You get like throwing knives or like some other bladed, stealth weapon. So, but yeah, you can actually, going back to the exploration, you can actually vent that pollen up into the building through the ventilation system, and it basically disables mentally, like they just kind of sit there staggered or whatever by this stuff, hallucinating all the enemies. So if you wanted to do a pacifist approach, you can actually free your target without shooting a single bullet or killing a single person. So that's kind of cool too, because it's more player freedom, right? You can be potentially a pacifist play. So, yeah. But
which is pretty cool. I mean, there's not a lot of games that give you that option,
right? So that's kind of what we have right now. That's the update we've got. I'm sure they're showing off more stuff at GDC, or we'll see some more after GDC. And I'll go ahead and I guess put this out here now. We've been in talks with these guys, and we're going to have one of the devs on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks. I was reaching out to them the first time we did coverage. They were very excited and offered to do an interview, and we'd love to have them on the show. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to have them on here and ask them some questions and get some more information. But as of right now, that's everything we know about Forest Rains. Tim, you got any thoughts on it? Other than
honestly,
good.
Other than what?
Other than the like slight confusion with the open world system, right?
I wouldn't necessarily call it confusion. I'm just trying to pinpoint what it's most like, because that's how that's how we understand something, right? So honestly, I think the game looks great. Just the little that they showed, it's intriguing. It's so unorthodox is probably the inappropriate term, but it's good enough to be like, games don't do this. And that's always like, okay, I'm interested. What are you doing here? And this game just looks awesome. It's so intriguing that I would love to hear more from them directly, being the fact that I missed the developer for Exfil. I'm excited to I'm here for this one. This one, to be fair, is more up my alley. Yeah. Either way, if you don't know what this game is, go look at some gameplay. It looks really, really interesting.
Yeah, this second gameplay reveal is about 8 minutes long. The narration's really good. Like I said, she has a bit of a thick accent, but you can understand it pretty easily unless you have serious problems with your ears. But I just, for the moment we saw this game, dude, when we discussed putting this on a few weeks back, I was very interested with it because graphically, just the world building in general of this idea of like the forest has taken over Paris, and this jungle looking landscape is so unique that like it's a good hook. It's a real good hook.
Yeah, I remember looking at it. I'm like, sentient trees.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
And then watching the gameplay trailer, I'm like, okay, give it to me now. I want to play your game.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, they've done great with the environmental storytelling too, just the art in the world of like posters on the wall. In fact, like the building that the NQA are in infiltrated here, that you're like infiltrating in, there's actually posters for another faction called I think it was the NFO of Paris. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's another faction. I don't know. It says resist the forest on their like banner or whatever it is. So it's interesting. There's a lot of environmental storytelling to it, which was made popular by The Division. So I'm excited to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're one of those players that's noticing things, and the developers are like, they're just being silent.
Yep. So, but that is Forest Reigns. We will have more for you guys when we have more for you guys. We're both very excited for this game. I can't wait to find out more. Yes. And please just don't make it a 200-hour game. Please just don't make it that long. Please, I can't do it.
There's too much, but your game still looks interesting, and I will play it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will play it.
So, I guess we'll move right along then to Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I took, I think I've got about 20 minutes of gameplay from the early portion of the game, literally the starting point of the game, where you start as Naoe. Cut out all the cutscenes in this, so there's no cutscene spoilage in it at all for anybody who's watching. This is strictly gameplay footage. But let's talk, Tim. Let's talk.
Yes, let's talk. So first thing I'm going to say is I informed you that it was Naoe. According to the game, that's wrong. It's Naoe.
Okay.
Like now with an A at the end.
Yeah.
Naoe. So there goes my Japanese, right?
Yeah. You lost your
I don't know shit about it. Yeah, right. I honestly want you to start. Okay. Tell me your thoughts. So obviously, I have a slight understanding because of the mod.
There was some rage.
You were slapped because you were stupid, and I'm not going to say why.
Okay.
And you went back, and so that's why I want you to start. I want to know your opinion.
So I'm going to start with that single issue. There is, for those of you who are playing this, if you can't figure this part out, do not beat yourself up. And if you do, congratulations, because this part took me so long to figure out on my own that I was pissed off to the point where I uninstalled the game, was like, fuck this game. So there was a point early on in the game, which you'll see towards the end of this footage, where you're after somebody who took a box. We'll get into the box in a bit, and you have to kill him. And I spent a good amount of time scouting the rooftops, trying to find a way to get to this guy or take out the people watching him. But literally everybody around him had double coverage on sightlines, and there was no way to get to him without being seen, perceivably. This game does a really...
And let me step in here. Mm-hmm. Even Naoe herself says, you have to use the grappling hook.
Early on. Not at that section, but yes, she says you have to use grappling hook to get over the walls. She said it earlier.
No. For me, anyways, she said when you actually got to himself, she says, that's him. I can use my grappling hook.
I did not get that dialogue.
Interesting.
Yeah, I got dialogue of him talking to somebody and her overhearing him. Hold on. Let me just pause. Did your game identify who he was when you got to him? Like, did it like pop up his name and all that?
So, not necessarily early, but you know when you first go into the castle, mm-hmm. They're like the first building you're supposed to go into, and that's not where the box is.
Yeah.
So I got through that section. I'm playing on expert, by the way, expert stealth. So keep in mind that means the AI is smarter, and they can see me much easier.
It's incredible. It needs some balancing. It's way too
huge increase.
It's
I don't necessarily agree with you here, but we'll get into that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Anyways, once I got through the first little section, I was noticed. And I was making my way all stealthy, being real careful, making sure I killed people without being seen, hide their bodies, etc. I saw someone and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I popped up on the guy and stealthed him. And as I was stealth killing him, I saw two more people. I was like, fuck. So I ran away. I ran away. I got like they couldn't find me, right? And so I don't know if that's because, or that's the reason why for me it was different for you. But by the time I got to the guy with the box, he was in a very specific place. And for me, there was literally 360-degree coverage of where he was. Yep. There was two guys in front of him, two guys to the left of him, two guys to the right of him, and two guys behind him. They were everywhere.
There was no apparent way to get to him without being seen.
Yeah, same for me. There was some trees with like a cloth wrapped around it. There was like a shrine, not a shrine, but like a amulet or something hanging from the tree.
Yep.
And I even looked it up because she was like, I can use my grappling hook. And I tried every fucking thing. Because before that, everything for the grappling hook for me, because I'm on PlayStation, said press L1 and use your grappling hook. I was like, can I jump and use the grappling hook somewhere? I don't know. Well, I ended up looking up. I'm like, how do you fucking use it? Because I didn't want to look up how to do this mission. Right. So I said, how do you use the grappling hook? And well, nothing worked for me.
Right.
But when I first walked up to him and I scanned him, she was like, that's him right there. I can use my grappling hook. And so that's where I was like, okay, how the fuck do I do that? I'll be honest with you. I still killed his ass, but I didn't use the grappling hook.
Did you just jump down and gank him?
Basically.
Yeah. So this is the problem with this section. The tree that you actually use the grappling hook to get to him from, you have to be in one specific position for it to actually work.
I tried like 5 different locations. So I agree with you.
Yeah. It's not intuitive. They also, it's stupid. There's one specific position. There's a pole that comes off a shrine that you can stand on that pole, and you have to be at the very end of the pole for it to register that you can use the grappling hook. So very poor design.
The only thing I'm going to step in here in defense of Assassin's Creed is now she talks to you. Yeah. She's talking for the player, obviously. In the real world, she's not going to be talking to herself.
Right.
She's going to be thinking. But she talks to you as the player, and she gives you hints.
Well, all Assassin's Creed have done that, but that line of dialogue,
every game does that. Your point is it's not clear enough. They're trying to point you in the right direction without giving you the hint, without making it shine like a lot of games do, and so. Even me, like I actually reloaded my save because I was like, I can jump here, and I would hit the tree and then fall down and I'd be noticed. I was like, well, reload that shit. And I tried that several times, and then I tried different locations, and it didn't work for me. Ultimately, I jumped at him and pressed the assassinate button. I did assassinate him, so I didn't have to jump into combat or anything like that.
They don't bother to teach you the grappling hook at all. They just go, yeah, you can use it now. Here you go. So they don't tell you where these points are, what to look for, or any of that at all. You're just, here you go, get it. So the game will tell you when you get close to something to hit either left bumper or L1 or whatever to use it. But until you're in that situation, there's no explanation of what you're looking for.
So, like the thing to me that was a little weird was I ended up going to a what they call it a hofer, basically a crypt. Okay. Basically, it's an ancient burial grounds, and you go underground, and it's like the previous Assassin's Creed games where you go through a platforming process. In that section, you can actually jump and press the grappling hook button to then swing and then jump to the next grappling hook button. It was 100% not in this first section.
Yeah. So
like it felt extremely jarring.
Yeah. So we're gonna get back to this. So for those of you who are stuck at this section, you can do either what Tim said, just jump and assassinate him. Or if you go to a specific beam that's jutting out from one of the buildings, you'll know it when you find it. It's near the wall of the keep. If you go to the end of that, then you can do your swing assassination. And
I actually saw that beam, and she had specifically said, if I follow the shadows or whatever, then I won't be seen. And so, given I'm an expert, I'm like, well, that's not in the shadows.
Right.
So I'm not going to go there.
Also, let me just talk about that real quick. The light in this game is bullshit. It is the middle of the night when you're doing this mission, and this roof is lit up like it's fucking daytime.
The moon is out in full force.
In sun force, bro. In sun force. It's ridiculous how easily spotted you are on the rooftops when it's supposed to be the middle of the night. Just a gripe I have.
The only thing I'm going to disagree with you here is I actually felt the opposite. There was a lot of times where I was on the roof and I'm like, how am I not being seen here? I'm an expert. I've been an expert the whole time. I didn't once ever move away from expert.
That's wild. I was getting spotted left and fucking right by people literally at like a 90-degree angle from me.
Yeah, like you had said, they spot you from 3 states away in the Discord.
Yeah.
And there was multiple times where I'm like, okay, he said 3 states away, so they've got fucking eagle vision. And there's multiple times where I'm like, I should be seen here, but clearly I'm not. So I guess I'll play with that. So to me, it felt way easier than you had anticipated me to because you played it before I did.
Yeah.
So I was expecting it to be way harder.
It was, dude. I'll have to show you my footage of how quickly and easily I was getting spotted because it was absolute garbage. It was.
That will inform me of how difficult it is for you compared to me.
Yeah, because it was not okay. And the fact that it's the middle of the night and I'm being seen on a fucking rooftop by somebody who's 3 buildings away from me and looking like his forehead is over the top of the wall so he can see me. That's literally, I looked at him and I'm like, how the fuck are you seeing me? I see your fucking top knot. What? Okay.
That's interesting. So again, I peruse Twitter. You guys know this. I've seen exactly one post, that says the PC version of the game is garbage.
Interesting.
And I mean, that's pretty par for the course, at least for you is concerned.
I wonder what
the
they're
PC version
by garbage as.
Well, I didn't delve too deeply into it, but they were saying frame rates and things of that sort.
Yeah, frame rate was fun.
That might lead into, say, AI detection. Maybe AI detection is way worse on PC than it is on PS5.
It's possible.
The only thing I've seen when it comes to PS5, I am on PS5 Pro, is that the PS5 Pro version is currently the best version to play when it comes to optimization. Graphically, stability-wise, everything else. The PS5 Pro version is absolutely the best version. I'm sure the PC version will eventually surpass that when they finally get all the patches and stuff in place.
Right.
But currently, the PS5 Pro version is the best place to play, at least on graphics and performance. I don't know if that includes AI, but I'm wondering if it does, because it sounds like to me that your AI is
it's
stupid.
retarded.
They've got eyes everywhere.
Yeah. I'm good at Assassin's Creed. It has been my favorite franchise for a long time. I'm good at these games. And I was like, what the fuck? Yes, literally, what the fuck? Yeah. So anyways, let's talk about what I like about this game. And then we'll get into what I don't like. The game is fucking beautiful. It is.
Oh my God.
It is incredibly gorgeous. And the facial animations, 99% of the time, are amazing. Yes. The reason I say 99% of the time, Mike, you'll cut in the clip here after I'm done talking. Mike showed me some footage that, bro, it terrified me. Flat out. It was honestly the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in a video game because it was so uncanny valley. There was a conversation that he was having in his footage, and the person he was talking to's face moved in a way that was so unsettling. It was the single most disturbing thing I've ever seen a human face or near human face do.
Realistically?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. She goes through a huge array of emotions. It was almost like her script was trying to pick the right face to react to the conversation in real time.
I was unaware they allowed children at these ceremonies.
We are partners in business. Gain entry to this coveted event?
Solkun and I have sealed many deals over Sakye.
Really?
Okay.
Then I wonder why he's never spoken of you.
It's not so strange. He never speaks of you either.
That is one of the things I've noticed about this game is at least Naue, because we spend more time with Naue in its first few hours. The mocap is amazing. Like I'm talking to like the lower lip trembles when she's crying.
Yeah.
And the emotion she's going through, it's extremely good.
In most
So
places. This is
Yes,
this
there-
one that I'm talking about. Like you'll have to watch because I'm sure Mike will cut in that footage. Let me mark the time for
Yeah.
4 minutes.
Well, there are a few points where it feels a little robotic, the way they move, the way they respond and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm chalking that up to like sort of early release. They haven't patched this out yet.
It could
No.
be, and I want to believe that. But this
Yep.
one situation, it happens so frequently, and the dialogue. I'm concerned there's going to be a lawsuit in the future, and I'm going to kind of go into that. The voice acting, the facial features, 99% of the time in this game, when I played it, was flawless. It was gorgeous, like we were talking. The footage Mike showed me of this mission he did, I'm almost convinced that half of the game, either they used AI to translate the script and did really shitty voice acting for this particular section, or they straight up like had a voice actor that they generated an AI voice from for this portion of the game. The lines are delivered in a way at a cadence that is so unnatural for conversation, and the gaps between dialogue have no pattern. There's literally one where Naue is talking to one of these other ladies, and she says a line, and then there's a huge gap to when the NPC responds, and then almost the second the lady finishes her words, Naue responds. So there's like,
Well,
it's like you'll have to see the footage. It's not.
well, so it sounds like I'm not there yet in the game, but that's not necessarily AI or whatever. That could easily be they timed the response, like they had her respond too quickly. I don't know. I guess I have to see
need
it
to see the
Just
footage
by your-
because that was
response here.
my initial thoughts. Is like, oh well, you know, like there is some strange cadence to the talk of this game. Like, okay, like it's different. It's Japanese flavored English, right? So there's a different cadence to it. This is not at all, does not mesh with anything else in the game that I've experienced in the 3 or so hours that we've played.
So ever so slightly off topic here, I've actually watched quite a few conversations between multiple AIs. So the AIs will be given, hey, you talk about this point of view, and then so debates between AIs. You have this point of view, you have this point of view, and respond to one another. It's actually a really fun learning experience. But my point here is that I actually have some understanding, even if it's just a tiny little bit, of how AI might work in this regard. So,
But here's why this is an issue. Here's why this is an issue. You go on the Steam page. Steam now requires an AI disclosure. For every game that goes on Steam, you have to disclose AI's involvement. There's no AI disclosure for Assassin's Creed Shadow. So either I'm way off base, or they are not disclosing the fact that they used AI in this game, or into what capacity.
do you have? So my thought process here is then, if that's the case, Steam requires it.
Yes.
What can Steam do if they don't disclose it? Can they remove the game?
I would
Can they
imagine
sue them?
probably.
You know what I
I
mean?
would imagine yes. Part of the terms and service agreement is you disclose this, so you could probably be blacklisted. You're probably going to face a fee, and you're probably going to have your games removed from their platform. That would be my guess, but I don't know. That's a legal action. I am not a lawyer. I have no idea how that goes, but I know when you violate terms of service, there's consequences, and that is in their TOS now for publishers. That's why it's there. So either I'm way off base, or they used AI and didn't disclose it. And honestly, even Mike, when he recorded it, he live streamed it on Twitch, and even him at the time is like, this is fucking weird. Like, it doesn't jive with at all the rest of the game.
You know how far he was in the game, roughly?
That was his first assassination target, so probably 5 or 6 hours, I would imagine. I mean, it depends on side stuff you do, right? Like,
Of course.
Yeah.
It was why I said roughly.
yeah, further than we are.
Yeah, no. So the reason why I ask is because, so like, my thought process, anyways, is that, if they are using AI to do stuff and they're not disclosing it and Steam requires it to be disclosed, I actually earlier today, a few hours ago, I looked up I looked at every Assassin's Creed game ever released on Steam, which means all of them.
Yeah.
And I'd seen people on Twitter and stuff talking about the concurrent player counts for Assassin's Creed, and concurrent player counts for single player games are extremely different from multiplayer games. So looking at something like, say, Monster Hunter versus something like Assassin's Creed, meaning single player versus multiplayer, they're extremely different. It's not a fair comparison to compare a single player game like Final Fantasy versus something like Monster Hunter or Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty or whatever.
Where are you going with this?
I guess where I'm going is that ultimately is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Its highest concurrent player count was 12 hours ago at 60,086 players. That is the second highest Assassin's Creed game ever. The first one being Assassin's Creed Odyssey at 61,000. And so my point is something like this, removing the second highest performing Assassin's Creed game from Steam could have some serious ramifications.
Gotcha.
Would they be willing to do that? Because at that point, would Ubisoft say, you know what? Fuck Steam, and remove their games from Steam altogether?
I mean, they did that in the past. They only just recently got put back on Steam.
They got put back on Steam because they realized the benefit of Steam.
Yeah.
I guess ultimately.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Steam said, well, you didn't disclose this, so, we're going to disclose your game, unless, I don't know, I don't know. Maybe they have some sort of damages that have to be claimed because they didn't follow the rules, or maybe they just have to.
I have no idea. We're just speculating at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Change the description and then it's back. I don't know. It could be something super minor. It could be something super major. And that could really, or that could lead to all sorts of different things. So I don't know. My mind just is trying to consider all of the different possibilities. And having not experienced this yet myself, I'm only a few hours away from doing so. I don't know how to respond, I guess.
It doesn't really need one. Once you watch the footage, we can talk more about it. But like, this is kind of where it's at. This is what I saw, and I'm just sharing that. Yeah. So beyond that, I'm very happy to see that they brought back parkour up and down from Unity. Unity is by far one of the best parkour systems in Assassin's Creed ever. Unfortunately, this game still has way too much nature to it, in my opinion, but I knew that going into it.
Bro, it's Japan. It's
Assassin's Creed open world. It's not just Japan.
Well, I meant the location is Japan, and because of the location, of course, it's going to be heavily focused on the environment, because Japan, they strive to make sure that you understand that nature is just as beautiful as humanity.
It makes for a bad Assassin's Creed game, in my opinion, but we'll get into that. I like that clothing gets dirty in a realistic way. That's really cool. When you roll around, your character actually shows dirt on them. That's a lot of fun. Auto follow in this game is something that needs to be in every game that requires you to fucking follow anyone ever, because I'm sick and tired of holding the W key or like having to stop and start and stop. Fuck that. And the music is really good, but it doesn't fit the narrative in a lot of places.
Tell me. This game, I have experienced 0 other games. The closest I can think of is Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, because I have yet to play 2. So I saw a meme earlier today, and I thought it was rather funny, because my personal experience was this. It said POV, i.e. point of view, Assassin's Creed Shadows, when you leave the road and it was that meme of Homer backing away into a bush.
Yep.
This game, if you leave the roadway, good luck seeing anything.
Yep.
Because the foliage and the trees and everything else are so freaking dense. I can't think of any other game other than, like I said, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, where the foliage is so dense, which I honestly believe lends to the game's absolute gorgeousness for the serenity of the world. It's amazing. But it forces you to play differently than pretty much every other game you've ever played.
I disagree with that statement, but I can see why you would think that. To me, the denseness... I'm just going to put it in plain terms. I hate this game. And we'll get into why in a minute, but I actually stopped playing after the 3-hour mark. The denseness of the forest, while it's beautiful in cutscenes and overview and climbing towers and stuff like that, it makes it feel like dissuasion from exploration. It makes it feel like Fable 1 and I'm back on roads that have fences that I can't jump across. Even though I can in this, it would be stupid to do that because it's so dense. Now, that's not even like on the radar for gripes with this game, but it's just kind of reacting to your statement, right? So,
yeah,
it is gorgeous. It has that going for it, and
I think gorgeous is minor. I think it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's great. I have zero qualms with this graphically, and in every aspect graphically, it is amazing, and it runs well on PC at release, which is not a common thing. Period. So good on Ubisoft for that. I want to get into I'm going to get into my main gripe with this game. And this is a slight spoiler for you guys for the very beginning section of the game. I'm sorry, it has to be addressed because the way it is done is fucking stupid. And it immediately killed this game for me. So let's talk about this.
Coming from a Assassin's Creed elitist, and I mean like AC1 elitist.
But it's not even like the story content; it's the structure and the gameplay. So we're gonna, okay.
Yes.
So I'm sure you have kind of you've seen this. You start the game as Yasuke, right?
Yes.
And you get your combat tutorial as he invades the village that Naue is in.
Yes.
And you get to do all his special attacks. You get to an end, and then it switches to Naue. And then you go through, well, you don't really go through combat training with her at that point. Then you go through her section and you have to get this box that your dad tells you is this super secret box, which immediately I'm like, okay, hopefully this isn't the main plot of the game. Spoiler, it is. The main plot of the game is this box. And I am so mad that the entire game revolves around revenge and this box and retrieving this box. It feels like Pulp Fiction mixed with Seven. What's in the fucking box?
I gotta stop you.
Okay.
We are only 3 hours in. We can't say the entire plot focuses around this.
You see,
currently, yes, it does focus around this plot. But that doesn't mean the entirety of the plot focuses around this. Many games, hell, my favorite game ever, maybe. I say it that way because last night we discussed Final Fantasy 16.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy 6 is my favorite game ever. Halfway through the fucking game, it throws a curveball at you, and you're like, "Oh shit!" And there are games that do that. And my point is this game could. That's all.
It could. But I am never going to compare the writing genius of Square Enix to Ubisoft.
And that's fair enough, but that doesn't mean they're incapable.
All I'm saying is we see the targets that Naue is going to kill in the beginning of the game, and your mission very clearly becomes find and kill these targets. My money as a seasoned Assassin's Creed franchise player, that is the bulk of the game. There will be side quests, obviously. That is the bulk of the game. Getting this box back is the bulk of the game.
My progression into the game is basically Naue gets her shit pushed in, and she has to heal herself, or well, not heal herself.
She gets healed. Yeah, she has to. Yeah,
the monk and little boy heals her.
Mm-hmm.
I basically got to that point, and then I finally opened up the world.
Yep.
Even though they're telling me to go here.
Yep.
And I said, I'm going to go there instead. That's basically where I'm.
Yeah,
I don't know how much.
I didn't get much further than that because I stopped giving a shit. So you go and try to go to this shrine to get this box that your dad tells you is super important. Turns out your dad's an assassin. Your mom is like the master assassin that died. Of course, they're not going to just outright tell you that, but that's the case.
Did you get the sense that you were an assassin, but your dad was so like when I say assassin, I mean you were a ninja. You are a ninja, but your dad was a samurai? Because I got that feeling.
Well, I if I'm not mistaken, that guy is actually a ninja, like historically speaking.
He's a real life, real world
Shinobi.
ninja. Yes.
Yeah. I got the impression that they took a lot of liberties with how Shinobi fought and what Shinobi were. That's the impression I got.
Yeah, me in the game felt more like a samurai.
Yeah, he did not
than a ninja.
Uh-huh.
And she felt like she was somehow not necessarily converting it, but she played like a ninja and like the different from him. Yes.
Yeah. They yeah. Anyways, you go to get this box. A samurai knocks you out and takes it. Your dad comes and finds you wounded from battle. Takes you to not your aunt's place, some lady's place that he knows who's somehow related to the assassins. Nope, it's not the aunt. It's a different lady. The aunt is the old lady.
So he doesn't take you to an aunt. That's a memory.
Right. Yeah. The person he takes you to is somebody he knows that is somehow related to the assassins. Anyways, not made clear, obviously.
No, he dies.
Nope.
He doesn't take you anywhere.
Yes, he does.
Dies.
Nope, he dies later. He takes you to that lady's house after you got beat up by the samurai. He picks you up, puts you on a horse. He falls over there. You go after the box.
Right.
So you go after this box to kill this samurai. However you go about it, you end up killing him. You recover the box. You escape. Your dad shows up to save you again. After you get shot, then he gets shot. Then you get left for dead with him. He dies. You get rezzed. Blah 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 blah. But in that process, after he dies, you get a flashback, and you go back in time to earlier that day.
2 years.
No. That's earlier that day. It's I distinctly remember it being earlier. It might have been 2 years. Was it?
It's 2 years.
Anyway,
2 years prior.
You go back in time, which also like just the time jumps in this game is fucking stupid. You go back in time to Naue. She comes out of your house, and guess what you get to do again? Learn combat again. You literally go through combat tutorial twice in this game. Why?
That was definitely 2 years prior. Definitely 2 years prior.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, I have to agree with this. No, I have to disagree with you here. Combat is very different.
No, it's not. It's the same fucking buttons. It's the same fucking buttons. You do not need to do combat twice. It's the same fucking buttons. The moves are different. The attacks are the animations are different. The damage and the moves are. It's the same buttons. It's the same buttons.
The ultimate premise, I will concede to you, is the same. But the way they play is different.
That doesn't matter.
Yasuke is a tank. Naue is a glass cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, she's not even a glass cannon. She's a glass scratcher. I don't know how else to put it. She's not nearly as defensive or able to take damage as Yasuke is. So yes, you are correct in the sense that their combat plays the same. She, however, plays differently, and I will admit that that's not learned immediately. Like, even still, I've found myself going into combat with 2 or 3 people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck these people up. No, I usually don't, because Naue is extremely weak. 2 or 3 hits and you're dead. So you have to be way more careful in the way you attack. But that's the point, is to discourage Naue's hand-to-hand combat. But I think that, in my opinion, I don't think that's necessarily bad, because yes, the button prompts are the same, but the finale is the incorrect term, but the conclusion, the way it plays out is different, because Yasuke is a I'm bigger and stronger than you, and Naue's a fuck, you cut me once and I'm dead. You know what I mean?
She's a ninja. She's not supposed to do open combat.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not opposed to having a scene where you fight your father in a training. I'm opposed to, let's train you how to use these buttons that we just trained you to do an hour ago or less. That's the problem. That there is zero fucking reason to make a player do a tutorial twice in an hour. That is fucking stupid.
That doesn't bother me. I don't know.
It was and it's not the only time. We're going to get into that. So you do your tutorial combat, and then you go about the village, which why do I give a fuck about him or this village when I already know it burns and he dies? And then you go do a bunch of side quests and then pop back to the modern time.
You don't technically know he dies until you play her storyline.
He's dead. He's 100% dead.
Again, you don't know that
That's
until
like
you play her storyline.
That's like saying you see a guy dying in a building and the building blows up, but you don't see him die. He might still be alive.
There are video games, movies, and books.
Yeah, but that's
make those people.
And it's fucking stupid every time. They're dead. He's dead.
Maybe not every time, but most of the time. Yes, I'll give you that.
So the biggest problem here is they immediately kill the impact of the death of your father and make the entire past section there like uninteresting. I know everybody here dies. I know he dies. None of this fucking matters.
I don't know. The mocap of Naue and him was rather well done.
That doesn't matter. They killed.
I thought it was
an emotional scene. Did you feel emotion towards him?
I wasn't crying. Don't get me wrong.
Sure,
but the way, so like we talked about how good the mocap is. The mocap, to me, watching the absolute teeny tiny little infinitesimal movement of her lower chin, was impressive.
Cool.
And watching her cry in a realistic manner, because they had that LA Noire multi-camera, viewpoint to make it as realistic as possible, which is PS3 versus PS5, by the way. I thought that was really well done. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, I wasn't crying because
I'm not talking about the animation. I'm talking about the emotion behind the scene. I don't care about the animation.
I think the animation helps sell it. And to me, it was emotional enough for me to care. I don't think it was a joke. It wasn't fucking Gears of War 3.
It wasn't meant to be a joke, but it was a fucking joke.
I disagree with you because, again, I think it was Gears of War 3. I might be wrong on my Gears of War. But there was a Gears of War where I think it was Dom finds his wife
in 3 or something like that. Yeah.
No, he doesn't die. Oh. He doesn't die. He finds his wife in the Iron Maiden, and he's like, she's alive. And then she's actually a fucking skeleton because he's seeing hallucinations.
Yeah.
That was a fucking joke. That was absolutely terrible. This was not that. I think that game, Gears of War's emotional scene, was a fucking joke. This game did a good enough job to sell her pain and whatnot to give you a reason as to why she's doing what she's doing.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the player. There was no... I'll give you the gold standard. I'll give you the gold standard that I hold every game. That's fine. I'm going to give you the gold standard, right? If you're going to kill off a character like this that's supposed to be an emotional impact, nothing is going to live up to The Last of Us. That is the gold standard.
Aerith?
No. Like
we were children.
Yes, we were children. Crying as a child at a video game is completely understandable. Your worldview is limited and small. Crying as an adult man who's watching someone hold their daughter who just got shot by somebody in the military is emotionally devastating. I will concede that. I will concede that. Especially when I played the game, I wasn't a parent. Not yet. It didn't matter.
No.
That's how good that scene was.
No, but that's my point. I wasn't a parent the first time I played that.
It was just that good.
Even still, if I play that game, the initial scene, I will cry.
I skip it every time. I skip it. I'm not doing this again. You're not going to hurt me again like that, Naughty Dog. Especially
having 2 daughters.
Yes.
I get that.
Yeah.
Get that.
Yeah. So like that's the gold standard for emotion in video games for character death. So let me tell you where this game went wrong. That entire arrangement of the beginning of this game was wrong. Let me float this to you, right? If I were writing this game and I knew that her dad was going to die at that scene, I want it to be emotionally impactful. I want that kind of response that we got from The Last of Us. So if I was going to write this game, you do your opening cutscene with Yasuke, where he meets Nobuabu or whatever the hell the guy's name is. I can't remember his name. Obunaga, but whatever the hell.
Obunaga.
Yeah.
Yes.
You meet him, and then it jumps to Naoi 2 years ago, learning from her father. You do all of that section. And then it goes, that way you can still do your tutorial combat. Makes sense. You just started the game. You're finally playing, you're learning. This makes sense. Then after that, it jumps forward to that siege knight and you're playing as Yasuke. And because he's bigger and badder and actually has some other abilities besides just hack and slash like she does, then you get the advanced combat tutorial where you learn all of his special abilities, the fucking mule kick and the charge and all that kind of stuff. He's got some extra stuff he can do. So you get that aspect. Then it jumps back to Naue as she flees the village with her father. Now you're already emotionally invested in your dad. You've shared these moments. He's taught you some stuff. You have a connection to this character. He tells you to go get the box. You go get the box. He gets injured and saves your life, taking you to whatever the lady's name is. Yeah. Then you go and get the box back. Then your father dies. The emotional impact of that would be far greater because now you've had time to see the connection between these characters, the love that father has for her daughter, the love the daughter has for her father. It would drastically change the impact of that death, at least from my perspective.
The only thing I'm going to compare, or not compare, but disagree with you here is that being a parent ourselves, because you are a parent just like I am, the loss of a daughter or a child is way more impactful to us than the loss of a parent, because neither of us have really. You haven't experienced it yet. I guess you can technically say I have, but I was 2, so I didn't really experience it. You know, we don't have that personal experience, and we don't want that personal experience with our children. So. But because of that, it also makes that harder to sell, right? Like it makes that emotion harder. So if you have that connection, if you have built that, it does make it harder. But more people experience the loss of a parent than a child.
Sure, I mean that's the natural way of things.
It's the way it should be.
Yeah,
and more people experience that because again, that's the way it should be. But it's easier to sell that. And in my experience, even though I haven't personally experienced it to where I can remember it, I saw Nagato's love for his daughter. I'm sure you did too, being a parent.
Yeah.
And sure, you don't have an adult child, and like neither do I. But sure, there could have been more depth there. They could have maybe made it 5 hours in instead of 3 hours.
I'm just saying,
giving us more context and made it better. But from my perspective, I see what they were going for, and I'm sure you do too. But I guess I don't necessarily discount it. I guess
it feels the structure of their opening feels out of whack.
I think not necessarily out of whack, maybe a little rushed might be the better thing.
And as I kind of said in the chat, the first hour of your game matters. It really, really, really does. In my opinion, that is the most critical portion of the game, because if you can't draw me into it and get me invested in the story and get me to want to continue, I'm not going to force it. And so ultimately, that was kind of the start of that. All right, I've kind of lost interest. Is it cheapened his sacrifice by not really showing the depth of their relationship as well as I feel like it could have. It was a weird structure, and I'm disappointed by it.
So the only thing I'm going to ask you here is how much do you understand Japanese culture, and not just Japanese culture, but ancient Japanese culture? I don't know.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair. And so ancient Japanese culture, what he did
That's
honor is
that's not even remotely the point here. It's the fact that the order of events it doesn't make sense to have you learn combat twice, and that the story is told in a way that cheapens the impact of his death, because they had sections like the meditation you do later on that makes sense because that increases the depth of that connection. But just by restructuring the front of it, it is impossible to argue that would make that death more impactful. You can't argue it.
And there's definitely ways that they could have made it more impactful.
That's what I'm getting at.
But what I am trying to say is I agree with what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree, is that Japanese culture is so different from our own that everything that happened is actually relatively accurate to the way that they would do things, especially in an ancient way. That it's what I mean is that the way we look at the world is so different that for us to understand psychologically, why did it happen? Why did it happen in this manner? Why did he sacrifice himself? And not even necessarily why, but the impact it has is actually rather deeply meaningful.
But that's not even what we're talking about here, dude.
I think it is. I think it really is. That you think it doesn't necessarily have as much impact because we didn't have enough time with him, or because we experienced the same thing more than once in the sense of the tutorial, or we didn't really get to see Nagato teach his daughter. Sure, we got to see an example of him teach his daughter, and then forcefully, I guess, teach her a life lesson by saying, "Go help your auntie." Like, sure, those are important aspects of life, especially in ancient culture. You know, you got to do things you don't want to. I don't know. Maybe I just accept it because
I think that's more the case.
Maybe. I don't know. But like, to me, what's the word I'm looking for here? Hold on a second. Classical education. Classical education is extremely important to me as a person. And 100 plus years ago, and when I say 100 plus, I mean 100 and then plus years ago.
It's usually what that means.
Well, yes, but I don't mean like 100 and maybe 160 years.
Where are we going?
I mean,
this, Tim?
Classical education to me and my family is really important.
Okay.
We actually are pulling our children out of home or out of school to teach them classical education, and we're putting one particularly into a classically educated school. Everyone was classically educated 100 plus years ago. Everyone.
What does that have to do with the structure of the game, Tim?
The philosophy, the psychology, the way you think about literally everything is different in classical education. I don't know how much you know about this, and so I don't want to say educate you. And so the way my mind works and my intent behind that is different. I don't know if I worded that correctly. The way I said that sounded weird. My intent in my life is to, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm going to say that. So God, this is so hard to describe appropriately. I'm sorry. I see the confusion.
I'm very confused. I do not understand where you're going with this at all, buddy.
The reason I'm saying this stuff because it is relevant, but I'm struggling to find the appropriate ways to describe it. In ancient Japan, especially in the 1500s, because that's when this game takes place, things were so different. And obviously you understand that. But there is a level of disconnect with the vast majority of modern people when it comes to the way ancient people.
But we're not talking about the culture. We're not talking about the...
I think we are. Ultimately.
I'm talking about the design choices by the developers on how they organized the portions of the game you play through.
To me, I think they were actually trying to understand the ancient ways of the world. And they're trying to subtly, because obviously they're not going to just throw it in your face. I think they were subtly trying to show you these things, which I guess might not necessarily be a good thing, at least for people like you. They're good for me because I pick up on these little things. I don't know if you can hear my snapping. You probably can't.
No.
Maybe I just look at the world differently. I don't know.
What is
Maybe
that?
I do. Maybe I don't. These things to me, like there's so many little things that stick out to me that I don't think stick out to you, and probably maybe to many / most people. Although I'll be honest with you, the vast majority of the communication on Twitter and other social medias that I'm seeing is actually positive. You have stated on more than one occasion that you are sort of the outlier or the opposing view most of the time. That's why I enjoy a conversation with you, because you're willing to have a legit non-argumentative conversation. I don't know. I really don't. My mind is not necessarily all over the place, but I think I don't want to say I'm seeing more than you are, but maybe it just resonates with me better than you. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know where you're going with that at all. That was quite the Tim talk. We're going to go ahead and move on. I think the way they structured the beginning portion of the game is out of order, and it narratively speaking was a bad choice. Is kind of what I was getting at.
Maybe it could have been better, but for me, it actually struck rather poignantly.
I'm glad that I'm glad it hit the way they intended for you. For me, it felt very disjointed and just narratively from a video game and storytelling stance wrong. Other issues I have with the game. I'm kind of sick and tired of Ubisoft making RPGs. I think their RPG elements are tired and played out, and the RPG aspect of this game felt no different than Odyssey, which was another immediate turnoff to me. The idea that you have 3 different skill paths to develop into, that I'm tired of
this game.
No, it's not. It's 3. You have Assassin, Shinobi, and Katana.
Well, there's your combat role.
Right. That's what I mean. Those are the 3 trees that you can develop into. And in Odyssey, it was Mythios, Assassin, and Ranger, or whatever the fuck it was. So it's the same skill tree that it's been since Odyssey, just different wording and abilities, more or less, which really they're not that much different. So I'm just personally over Ubisoft's take on RPGs in general. I don't think Assassin's Creed ever needed to be an RPG. It went that way. This is where we're at. It's been this longer than it's been the other thing. Personally, if they're going to stick with this route, I would rather go the route of like Ghost Recon. Is it Breakpoint, where you can completely disable the RPG aspect and just have gear and realistic combat. If they want to stick with this method, that should be an option. That was groundbreaking.
I'm pretty sure I'm on record saying that absolutely every first-person shooter, and I guess in this case, RPG or open world game, needs to have that customization option.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd agree with you that AC has been RPG longer than it was non-RPG.
I'm pretty sure it has at this point.
We're pretty close to that, because 2018 is when, or maybe it was 2017. I don't remember exactly when Origins released, but
Origins came out in 2017.
Okay, 17.
Yeah.
So 2008, I'm pretty sure, was the first AC.
2007. So it was 10 years.
That gives us 11 years.
10 years. 2007 to 2017. 10 years.
Sorry. Yeah, my math is wrong.
Yeah.
10 years, which means we're less than 10 years into the RPG series. So it is still longer in the non-RPG series, but close.
Yeah. It's
very close. Very close.
It's long enough that I'm pretty sure my version of Assassin's Creed will never see the light of day again. So it's just...
Oh, Mirage is pretty close to the non-RPG.
I still haven't played it. It's
maybe now, especially after Shadows, you should probably go back to it.
I think I should. I'm just kind of over the RPG aspect personally. The fact that like assassination regardless of health is not immediately toggled on in this game, and you have to manually go turn that on is kind of bullshit. This is Assassin's Creed. You should be able to one-shot everyone with your assassination move. That's
I guess the way I look at that is that, sure, I understand your point of view, but like, if you were, so the whole point, in my opinion, or to my view, is that depending on your level of aggression, you've been doing this for 3 months versus 3 to 30 years, you're this level of assassin and you're trying to kill this level of person. This person's been doing it for way longer than you. The level system, I guess, is what I'm trying to explain here.
Sure.
Is in the beginning of the game, you're a very novice assassin, and you're trying to kill very non-novice people. And so you try to do that, and your level is your level of experience. And so you're trying to kill a high-level person that they pay attention more. They're able to notice things that you aren't. And so when you try to assassinate them, they go, bitch, nope. And they stop your assassination. And so for me, I guess I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, and I that's actually part of the RPG aspect I hate, because that's not how reality works.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, I think reality does work in that way, assuming the person is paying attention.
I mean, literally, that's how the shinobis managed to be as impactful as they were in feudal Japan. Was they were
assuming
farmers,
they were good at what they did,
but they would like it. There's enough historical record to show that shinobis were not trained in any way to fight samurai. If they got in combat with samurai, they were dead. Their advantage was stealth and assassination.
Yes. That's a very different point than what I was making.
Right, but that's the point I'm making, which is if I'm a shinobi, I should be able to take my target out by shoving my blade through their neck and being done. Because if it's a stealth game, it's stealth game. Like, that's you should have to toggle the option off. That's all I'm saying. If the option should be on, you should have to toggle it off.
I think it's more nuanced than that. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it should be as easy as, I jumped up on this guy.
And this is why the franchise that I loved is dead. Because that's how it was. That's how it should be.
I love the RPG aspect of it, honestly. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more nuance to most everything. And most people are trying to remove the nuance.
I disagree with that statement completely.
Most people are. That's fine.
They also directly copy Ghost of Tsushima, which is disappointing.
I disagree with that. I think they took influence. Heavy influence, sure, but I don't think they directly
copied the homework and then changed a few words. In terms of the meditation, they copied the homework and then changed a few words. Instead of writing haiku, you now hit a series of buttons in an order repetitively until it triggers a memory to go back in time to get the emotional connection and depth of the story that we're missing.
Someone actually made a post on X about how he believed the commentary or the discussion on Assassin's Creed versus Ghost of Tsushima, and this was a very primarily Assassin's Creed account. He basically said, "This is bullshit. You're all fucking retarded. Ghost of Tsushima is better."
I mean, yes,
in all the ways.
Yeah,
I agreed. I even told him I agreed. So to that point, I think these two things are different, because the haikus, as much as I enjoyed them, they don't really have much impact. They're minimal in Ghost of Tsushima versus this, because Assassin's Creed Shadows has you go back in time and then you experience this memory.
As someone who just talked about more games needing nuance, you didn't get the nuance of doing the haikus?
No. I didn't not understand those haikus. What I mean is the impact of them,
right,
to the player.
There wasn't. Okay.
Do you? I'm sorry to say this, but I may have said this more than once. But do you really believe that the majority of the players of these games are going to understand that nuance?
I mean, I don't really care what the majority of players think or feel about nuance. I think about how the intent was, and I think the intent of Assassin's Creed was to tell a fragmented story. Because what that's done,
Creed's always done that.
it hasn't. It really hasn't.
I don't know. I don't think I agree with you. These fragmented stories where you find the history of the people, I forget his name, but
They
the dude
don't-
that's stuck in the Animus, and you find his fragments.
And that's a side story. That's not a main plot.
You're correct, but they're still important.
No, they're actually not. They have no bearing on the story at all, especially even less now. None of that is important to the series anymore. None of it.
I believe Jade Raymond intended them to be important.
Yeah, and she left after
while
3.
While they aren't anymore, the intention was there. And so I don't know. Maybe I guess I just look at it differently. You are correct. You are correct.
The point of the memories is cool. The problem I have with it, again, is the character that they're trying to establish a connection with is already dead. So I personally find it hard to give a shit. Every time you do the meditation, it's about your dad. Well, I mean, the 2 times I did it before I stopped playing. It's a memory of your father. In fact, the second one, you do the meditation to learn how to meditate, which was fucking garbage, because that's twice now that you've taught me something and then taught it to me again. What the actual
I don't necessarily agree that it's meant to give you a connection to her father, because we all have connections to those we love, especially our parents. And so we're going to learn more about this person because of their connection with those.
Either way, his character is irrelevant. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. By killing him, his character is irrelevant. His story is over before it's begun.
I disagree.
He tells you, we get it very clear at the beginning of the game. He hasn't told you anything about your assassin's lineage. You don't know the true nature of your mother. You have no idea what's in this box. For all intents and purposes, you have no idea what an assassin is. So very clearly, we're not talking about the nuance of it. We're talking about what's presented to us as a player. They haven't told Naue anything about her origin. So they kill the dad and then want to drop hints through the past, which are irrelevant because dude's dead and it doesn't matter to her story anymore. We're living through a memory that she's experiencing that is completely irrelevant as a player because the person who's narrating, who's showing us, who's teaching us is dead. So there is no emotional connection or interest, in my opinion, with anything going on in that time. Nothing.
All right. We got to stop here. I'm about to piss myself. I'll be right back.
The bottom line is this, for me, is not what Assassin's Creed is. And I have to now come to terms that in 1 year, 2 of my favorite franchises died. And that has been difficult for me. It's actually honestly left me in a really weird place where I almost... Dragon Age.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. It's left me in a really weird place where like I almost feel depressed, but that feels stupid to feel that way.
So I really want to go back to AC and Dragon Age. Fully understand. It took what most of us loved, and it changed it, and it turned it into something entirely different, which was, I guess, technically okay for new fans or people that didn't really care about the franchise in the past. However, AC, honestly, I think it's sort of a perspective issue.
Yes.
And not to say that one perspective is right over the other. I think your perspective is okay, although I do believe, technically speaking, you need to go, okay, what I loved is gone.
Yes. That's where I'm at. That's literally where I'm at.
Well, yeah, like what I loved is gone. What's there is different, and it's not what I want it to be, but it's not bad. I think
it's because of that perspective of what it was, right? So like, as much as people say, forget the past doesn't matter, blah, 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 blah. The past influences, right? The past influences. it's a way of coping with bad shit that's happened, right? Like you put it behind you and you move forward kind of thing. But at the same time, the past influences the future. It does. It influences everything. And so what I'm getting at here is my past with Assassin's Creed is latent with nostalgia of a franchise that I watched early on develop from a new Prince of Persia into an amazing stealth game that changed action adventure games forever.
Yep.
It did. And what I loved about the franchise makes it hard to appreciate what this game is, because what I loved about the franchise is gone, more or less, in this game. There are fragments of it, but the whole of the picture is vastly different now than it was from what I loved. And I knew going into this game, it was going to be open world. I knew going into this game, there was going to be RPG. I knew that going into it. And I wanted...
You knew that it was historical fiction.
Yeah, because that's what it's always been.
Yeah.
But, and I don't... It's not an issue. I don't give a shit about that at all. That's expected. But the aspects of the game that I loved aren't here anymore. I loved...
What are those? What are those specifically?
Yeah. So like Unity's a prime example. It was a massive open world single city map. It was urban, which is what the parkour system was designed for. It took place in one location where you had plenty of opportunity to enjoy the traversal. You had opportunity for multiple different avenues to assess, find, and kill your target and escape. Assassin's Creed was, to me, there's levels to Assassin's Creed, right? You can play the game
versus Syndicate then.
So,
because
all right, so
I believe Syndicate was a very good Unity.
Let me pause you. I haven't played Syndicate, and I will explain why. And this might sound stupid, but I'll explain why.
Okay.
I can't play that game because it's the last Assassin's Creed that is the style that I fell in love with. No, but like you got to understand from a fandom perspective, playing that game acknowledges that what I loved about this franchise is dead. That's what that game means. That game is this game's funeral to me. This franchise's funeral.
But it also makes it its swan song.
It does. And that makes it hard to want to play. I own it. I have all the DLC. I have everything for that game. And I really want to play it. But at the same time, playing that is an acknowledgement that a part of my past that like influenced me very heavily is gone. So
I think this is where our perspectives change.
Right.
What I mean by that is you said like that requires me to acknowledge the things I loved are gone and or are changed. They're different.
Yes.
I believe that's an extremely important aspect of life.
It is. Yeah.
And it's something, and it's something that we need to come to terms with. And avoiding it is to our detriment.
Sure. And it's made clear to me by this game that now's the time, is basically what I'm getting at.
So does that mean you're going to play Syndicate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't doubt, much like Dragon Age, I don't doubt people who are moderately interested in Assassin's Creed or passing fancy in Assassin's Creed, or even just, yeah, I've played the games, they're cool, will enjoy this game. I don't doubt it at all. But to me, Assassin's Creed had it had a philosophy to it that made it beautiful, right? The idea of like in Assassin's Creed, in what it was, there was no good and bad. And I think a lot of people miss that. Too often are the Templar sold as like the bad guys nowadays. But the original Assassin's Creed is both the assassins and the Templar had the same goal. It was a matter of how they wanted that achieved.
To be
That's
fair,
what was different.
That's the majority of most opposing forces.
Right.
They both want effectively the same thing. It's just the path to that same thing.
In the real world. Right. That's how the real world works. In video games, it doesn't usually work that way. And that's what made Assassin's Creed stand out, is it was the same goal, different means. and the philosophy behind freedom through knowledge and the chaos that comes with that versus freedom through control and the peace that comes with that, because they are two opposing ideologies. And it was attracting to me as a teenage boy struggling with everything that life has to give, right? So
it's so interesting. Are you an atheist? Is that the appropriate term?
I guess. I mean, if you need to put something on, I don't believe in any higher being. Sure.
Well, that would be,
I guess, agnostic, atheist. I don't know, because I think atheists specifically believe there is no God, and I can't be bothered.
Well, that's what I'm trying to make sure I'm appropriate here.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
It's just where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And so, me as an Orthodox, I'm trying to effectively or appropriately point out the dichotomy of our views here.
Mm-hmm.
You are an agnostic, I think is the appropriate term here. And I'm an Orthodox Christian. I don't know how much you know about that, but if you want to have any idea of what that means, ask an AI what is an Orthodox Christian.
Sure.
And I think that'll be good enough to describe where I'm at. And so we have, well, no, my point here is that we have opposing views, and I guess they can be broken down to video games. Actually, I will have to point out something rather funny here. There is an Orthodox priest so there are various Orthodox priests that are rather prominent, right? So, and what I mean by this is if you look at any form of Christianity, Baptist or whatever denomination that exists, non-denominational or Baptist or Protestant, whatever, it doesn't matter. My point is that every single one of those, they are individual churches, right? And there's a point to this. Please bear with me. There's a point to this. Every single one of those, every single Baptist church is an individual Baptist church. They don't communicate with one another. There's one Baptist church on this corner, one Baptist church on that corner, one Baptist church in this state, etc. Okay. Orthodoxy, we all communicate with one another. I can go to any Orthodox church around the world, minus Coptics, because they're not in communion with us. And there's another one that currently escapes me. But anyways, I can go to any Orthodox church around the world and I'm getting the same experience. And my point, because we are in communion with each other, we agree on these fundamentals. And trying to figure out how to parse this appropriately is when it comes to our points of view, this is difficult because I mean, to be fair, Assassin's Creed actually does attempt to broach these topics.
It does, yeah. Historically, not so much anymore, but historically, yeah. True.
It used to.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, maybe they stated that the future storyline in Assassin's Creed Shadow was going to be more important.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it.
I don't think you and I are nearly far enough into the story.
It still starts out with the same meta joke as you're playing a video game in a video game, and so like that, it's immediately a turn off to me personally.
I guess from my perspective, it's the way they started is I don't think it's a joke. I think it's their way of stating this is the future viewpoint on memories and playing your ancestors and things of that sort. And then they quickly jump into the past of you playing your ancestor. And I haven't gotten far enough. We haven't gotten far enough to see what that means. Yeah. And there could be way more depth to that. And I think there's a dichotomy of you and I's viewpoints on what's happening here. And maybe I'm reading more into it than is there. Maybe you are correct. Maybe there is all of this. I don't know if surface level is the appropriate term, but maybe there is this surface level of you wish there was more of what the games used to be, and maybe I'm reading more into it than there is. I don't know. I'm not far enough into the games yet.
It really just comes down to, I was hoping this was going to blend what Assassin's Creed was with what it was with what it has been in recent years, and it doesn't feel like they've blended those. It feels like it's still Odyssey, Origin, Valhalla. Like it doesn't feel like it's taken. It doesn't feel like it's the past, and that's fine. That's what it is. I had hoped they would have taken some of its history and brought it into this game, and it just does not feel or seem like they have. And that's why I'm disappointed.
This is entirely read from people who have played dozens, hundreds of hours of this game already. My understanding, which I haven't played enough to experience it firsthand, but my third-hand experience is that this game removes a lot of the bloat of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla to make it a more of streamlined experience to be closer to what you loved about the franchises. And I can't firsthand tell you that's the case. That's what I've read from those who have played it a lot more than me, because I'm not a sweaty. I have a family and a job and all these other things. So it'll take me a minute to get to that conclusion for myself.
The reality is, the moment I actually got into the open world and got to run around, I felt like it was the beginning of Odyssey. It was literally like, oh, open world, I'm out in the countryside. I have to run or get on my horse and ride from this spot to that spot, and then go from this spot to that spot, and then go from this spot to that spot, and then go from this spot to that spot. In a big open world that has nothing in it other than beautiful scenery, like Ghost of Tsushima, which it fits better in that game narratively because of how that game is designed. Assassin's Creed was a urban game, and it is no longer an urban game, and that's fine, but I don't like it.
You never got that sense of wonder of, holy crap.
That's not, the sense of wonder is not what Assassin's Creed is supposed to be, in my opinion. The sense of awe at the scale of a city and moving through a living, breathing, being in Damascus during the Third Crusade and seeing the marketplace, going to Jerusalem and seeing the cathedral, going to Acre and seeing the port, and seeing places that were historically accurately rebuilt with historians on the team was
with extreme accuracy.
Yeah. Incredible. That's not what this is. This is feudal Japan. You get the whole thing.
I mean, I fully understand. AC1 versus AC Shadows. AC1 is almost like Kingdom Come Deliverance, where they were doing everything they could to make it as historically accurate as possible.
Adding the fiction to make it fun.
Yes. Adding the fiction to make it fun. And moving along to AC Shadows, historical fiction is loose, even.
Yeah.
It's more historical.
It's more fiction historical.
Yeah. I don't know how to word it properly. That's probably better than what I was thinking. It's fiction based on history, but way more fiction than history. And the OG games were historical with a little bit of fiction. And so I understand your point of view, I guess.
And I don't expect you to agree with it by any means. Again, I don't doubt that this is a fun open world game, and I'm sure it deserves its marks it's getting. From me personally, I was expecting and hoping for more. I guess I shouldn't say expecting. I was hoping for more.
I jokingly said you went from PC Master Race to AC Master Race.
I mean, you're not wrong, dude. Like I'm passionate about the franchises I care about, and watching both of them die in a year is rough, in my opinion. I think that the unilateral comparison from Dragon Age to AC is unfounded, because it's not a Dragon Age like Dragon Age is, but it's a departure from what I was hoping they were going back to. Like you play this and then play Valhalla and play Odyssey and play Origin and tell me what the difference is besides the setting and the characters.
Maybe I'm too classically educated to make this make sense to the non-classically educated. but and I don't mean that in a derogatory term.
It sure as hell sounds like it.
I don't mean it that way, and I apologize if it comes off that way.
It's fine.
But this is where my mind is going. This is like asking Tolkien to write the first 2 Lord of the Rings books, and then asking fucking God, any other author to write the 3rd book. Any other author. It doesn't matter. Any other author.
Okay.
That's basically what you are finding fault with. It has changed tact so much that you dislike it. Even though it's not necessarily bad.
Sure.
It's just it's turned a hard 90, maybe even a hard 180 from what it was.
Yeah. And it's the way they sold this game, it made it feel like they were returning to a style of Assassin's Creed that was going to be, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just still fucking butthurt over Odyssey and how awful that game was, and I just cannot deal.
Awful Assassin's Creed. It wasn't a bad game.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fair. It feels like Ubisoft is just using the franchise title to sell whatever they feel like throwing a dart at, and this game hits particularly deep because of the, I don't know.
Are you sure you're not conflating Assassin's Creed Mirage with Shadows? Because I feel like Mirage was way more promoted as what AC used to be.
Right. No. That one was. You're correct. This one, when they took it back to rebrand it and refocused on the parkour and started making story changes and starting remarketing it after the first delay, that's where I started to get my hope up. We even talked about it, that the game started to look better. It started to look more like Assassin's Creed. That's where it came from. And the reason this hurts or hits the most is I remember the ending of Assassin's Creed 1 and theorizing that we were going to Japan for the next game, because there's writing on the wall in that game at the end that you can use Eagle Vision as Desmond to see. And like, this is leaving out the whole complete detraction of the modern story, which tied all those games together and made them interesting and gave the modern story a reason to exist that they've failed ever since. Leaving that all aside, if they do it right here, awesome, but I will not be playing it to find out. And there is no amount of praise from anyone that is going to get me to return to this game, because the one saving grace I can say about this game is thank God I didn't spend $70 on it. I signed up for Ubisoft subscription for the month and paid $17. And if you liked, we really have to end this episode. It is almost 2 hours and we didn't even get to Future Game Show, which is a damn shame. But I had a feeling that was going to happen. At the end of the day, if you like open world RPGs like The Witcher, like the other Assassin's Creeds, like any other open world RPG that is out there, you'll probably like Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you are a diehard fan of what Assassin's Creed used to be, like me, this won't be for you. That's really the bottom line.
The only thing I'm going to change here about what you said, I'm going to add a dichotomy here, is that Assassin's Creed was Jade Raymond, the OG creator, the OG mind behind Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
She had a vision, and while her vision was unable to become reality, because she left, shit happened, whatever, AC became something different.
Yep.
And I honestly appreciate your view. Like, I really do. I really do. I wish it had almost been what it intended to be, but I guess maybe I'm more open. I don't know if that's the appropriate term. Maybe I was more open. Maybe
I definitely,
maybe I just,
I mean, I definitely hold the franchises I love close to my heart, right? Like, they are very important to me.
But that's the only reason why I'm going to find fault with what you just said, is that AC is extremely important to me as well. I've been playing them since just as early as you.
Sure.
And I have a different point of view. And fuck if I know why that is. I'm not going to worry about finding out why now. I have such a different view from you that I guess I'm not going to try and find out why now that I enjoy what they are. Not to say that I'm right and you're wrong. And you're right and I'm wrong.
I don't think there is a right and wrong here. It's just perspective. That's the thing about
yeah,
reviews. Yeah, they're a perspective based on observed fact.
I've been saying it all day on Twitter. I've only played 3 hours and 10, maybe 20 minutes. But for me, as it currently stands, it's about a 9 out of 10.
That's a really good rating.
About. It might go up, it might go down. I don't know yet. I'm not far enough in. I can't give it a definitive view. But for the 3 hours I've played, I've been invested enough to go, okay, I really want to know more.
I'm happy for you, man. I really am. Like, I'm not at all being sarcastic with that statement. I'm glad that this game has been successful for Ubisoft. I'm glad that they have gotten the critical acclaim that they've needed for this franchise for a very long time. But much like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, what comes with that means that they're going to continue that line. We saw that with Twilight, with Tears of the Kingdom. You and I both.
And that's where you agree.
Yeah. You and I 100%. Both did not enjoy Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom was more of the same.
Yep.
And this success that Ubisoft has found with Shadow, I guarantee you will mean more of the same for the future. They will play it safe. They will not go back and experiment like they did with Mirage, which probably did not sell very well because I personally don't think it was marketed very well. And
no, it definitely wasn't.
And they won't return to what Assassin's Creed used to be with 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3, Syndicate, Unity, Liberation, all of them. So I don't really know how to end this episode. I would love to continue to talk about this, but we're at 2 hours into this.
We're extremely deep into the episode, and we spent way more time on Assassin's Creed Shadows than we intended, even though we expected it.
Yep.
I will state that we have way more, probably even more than we spent on Assassin's Creed Shadows on the future game show.
Oof. I don't know if I'm up for that tonight.
It's late, but we have even more upcoming for the Patreon side.
Yep.
The future game show, which IGN put out, has so much to talk about that I don't. We might as well record a special episode. We might even. We'll talk about it. Me and Rush will talk about this. But my point is we have so much to talk about that. Look forward to what we have, because maybe we'll set this aside. I don't know. I wish we could give everything for free, but we have to find some way to continue doing what we're doing and make it viable, right? Everyone has to find everything what they're doing is viable. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys, but let's just say I have, because I can't say Russ. Russ doesn't know what we're going to talk about.
I don't.
And that was by design.
Yes.
We have so much to talk about that it might be a secret episode or a special episode or whatever. So I appreciate you guys listening to our back and forth on what AC was. It's so interesting because Zelda we agree with 100%.
Yeah.
But AC we're almost diametrically opposed.
It's very interesting.
It's so interesting, and I appreciate him, Russ, you, and all of our followers, listeners for sticking with us through this.
Hopefully they did. I mean, hopefully this episode doesn't lose us stuff with our crazy rants and ramblings. But I like Tim said, thanks everybody. We love you, Tim. I love you, man. I do enjoy having an opposed view with you because I trust you and I know that we are going to be able to have a conversation about it that isn't going to devolve into autistic streaming. So that's always nice. So with that, guys, we are going to head over to our Patreon, and for our patrons, you might be getting an extra content we're going to discuss as we leave here and before we start that up. Tim, Take us out, buddy.
Tell your mother that I love her very much and that I said hello.
Don't tell her that. Don't tell her that. Have a great night, everyone. Don't tell her that. Tell her that.